friends, it's Michelle from Little Farm in the Valley. So this week we are doing another rhubarb video because we just love rhubarb that much. It is just that good. But I have a couple more rhubarb dessert recipes that are absolutely delicious. These two recipes I grew up with, and they are definitely some of the best rhubarb recipes that I've ever had. I know you're gonna love them. So we have our work cut out for us. Let's make some rhubarb desserts today. So our first recipe is very simple. We're going to take 1 1/3 cup flour. Then we're going to take a 1/2 cup butter and a tablespoon of sugar. So this is a crust for a rhubarb dessert. So we're going to mix it and put it on the bottom of our pan. About a tablespoon. I'm going to grease my pan, and then I'm going to work this into a crust. So this dessert is called rhubarb custard dessert. I will put a picture of the recipe on the video and you can screenshot that if you want to try and make this yourself. I don't think you'll be disappointed. This is a really good one. So once we have this kind of incorporated and cut into, once we have the butter cut into the flour, I'm going to press it into the pan and bake it at 300 for 10 minutes. So just like this, press it nice and flat and bake it at 300 degrees for 10 minutes. Okay, for my filling recipe of this dessert, I'm going to take 6 cups of rhubarb. And my rhubarb was in the freezer, by the way. It's actually only from a couple weeks ago, so I cut up a whole bunch. And since I didn't want to use it all right away, I put it in the freezer. Obviously fresh would be best, but this will work for what we are making. Kind of pick out the pieces of ice that don't have rhubarb, but this will work. Since this dessert is baked, it'll be fine. So now we're going to add 2 cups of sugar. So this is a 1/2 cup measure here. So that's 2 cups. We're going to add a cup of cream. So I ladled some cream off of yesterday's milk from our milk cow. It's not super thick yet, but that's okay. It'll work in this recipe. And now we have a 1/4 cup of flour and a pinch of salt. And then I have 7 egg yolks. So this is basically a custard filling that we're going to mix together and put on top of that crust that we baked. So now we're going to pour it over our crust that we baked, and we're going to bake this at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. You'll kind of be able to tell when this filling is set. It won't be so jiggly anymore. So it usually takes about 45 minutes at 350. So our next rhubarb dessert is going to be a layered pudding, which is really a crowd pleaser. This is an amazing, amazing dessert, and it's fairly easy. It has a lot of steps, so it seems a little more complicated than it is, but I promise you it'll be worth it. So we're going to start by doing the first step, which is a graham cracker crust. It's very, very simple. So I'm going to take 2.5 cups of graham cracker crumbs. I usually keep these in the freezer. I do a few boxes at a time, chop them all up so they're handy in the freezer. So we'll do 2.5 cups of graham cracker crumbs. And then I have a 1/4 cup of sugar, and I'm melting a 1/4 cup of butter. So I'm going to add my melted butter, and I'm going to mix everything in. This doesn't even need to be baked. We're just going to press it into a pan. I don't even think I bothered greasing my pan for this one. So the first layer is done. So I just noticed that this pan has a hole on the side here. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this into another pan. So our second layer here is going to be a cooked rhubarb filling. So I'm going to take a 1/2 cup water, a cup of sugar. These rhubarb desserts really do not skimp on sugar because rhubarb is a little bit tart. So I'm going to take 4 cups. I like to measure my rhubarb pretty generously. So this is probably close to 3 bags per cup, but that's okay. The more rhubarb, the better, right? So last we're going to add about a tablespoon of cornstarch, and we're going to put this on the stove and cook it until it's thickened. You probably want to be pretty close to be able to stir it when needed, and I might just have to add a little bit more water. I added that 1/2 cup, and I'll just keep an eye on it and decide if I want to add more water or not. So this is our second layer. This is going to go on the stove, and we're going to cook it. So while I'm cooking my filling, I have a bag of big marshmallows, and my recipe calls for mini, but this is all I have. So I'm just taking a scissors and cutting these down. This next step wouldn't be very time consuming at all if I would have had mini marshmallows, but that's okay. It only takes 5 or 10 minutes to cut up a bag, and I have to stand here and watch this filling anyway. I don't think I have to add more water. I guess the water in the frozen rhubarb is helping a bit. Yep. Yep. So yeah, I didn't end up having to add more water. I have to keep putting water on my scissors to keep this going fast. yeah, that liquid probably from the frozen rhubarb, I'm thinking, really helped. So just gonna let this boil and thicken, and then that will be our rhubarb filling layer. So our filling is looking pretty good. Probably going to turn it off here in the next 1 or 2 minutes, and that can go probably directly onto that graham cracker layer. Although since I'm doing other kitchen stuff, I might just let it cool while I work on the next layer. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and add our rhubarb layer slowly so it doesn't split the crust or go underneath the crust. Still very hot, as you can see. So our next layer for this rhubarb pudding dessert is a whipped cream layer. So I'm just going to whip this, and when it starts to thicken, I'm going to add sugar, and then I'm going to add those marshmallows that I just cut up. So what I'm doing right now actually is I am making vanilla pudding, which is my last layer for that pudding dessert. Now I'm not against pudding from the store, and if I had a box of pudding I would probably be using it, but when I'm out I have a wonderful recipe that I make using basic ingredients that most people have in their kitchens. So I'm not going to go into detail because I want to do a video on that sometime in the upcoming weeks. A video just on how I make this vanilla pudding. But it's basic ingredients: milk, sugar, cornstarch, egg yolks. Most of the time you're going to have those on hand. And when you run out of convenience things like putting in a box, you can make this absolutely delicious vanilla pudding from scratch. Anyway, we think it is also even better tasting than the vanilla pudding that you can buy at the store. So hopefully that will inspire you to not feel dejected when you're trying to make a recipe and don't have certain ingredients. A lot of times these things can be made at home using very basic ingredients, and the end result tastes even better. So yeah, I will do a whole video on this vanilla pudding thing, but that's what I'm working on right now, and that's my last layer to that rhubarb pudding dessert. So this has cooled a little bit. I'm gonna add that marshmallow and cream layer. It'll be a little bit difficult to spread out, but I'll do my best. As long as I can get some kind of in every corner. So we're gonna put our last layer on here, which is the pudding. It's not completely thickened yet, so I'm just gonna very carefully, again, make sure I kind of cover everything. And then I'm gonna freeze this dessert, because these desserts are actually both better when they're really cold because of the cream and the pudding. Those are not things that you want warm, obviously. Now I could have taken a little bit more time and made sure these layers were nice and covered. Like right now you can see the marshmallows through this. Normally that's not the case, but in a pinch and when you're in a hurry, this will work just fine. So I'm gonna get this to cooling off. So I took my the rhubarb custard one out of the freezer that we baked. So this is frozen solid now. So we'll do the last step, which is to whip some cream and just put that on the top. Then that one will be ready to eat. Kind of made a mistake with the other one in rushing and not letting the layers cool off. Usually I take my time, and sometimes I even do like the graham cracker step, the rhubarb step, and refrigerate it overnight and then finish it in the morning. But today I was in a hurry, so it's not as pretty as it could be, but I have it in the freezer now and we'll take a look at it tomorrow. Usually the layers are all, like you can't see through the layers. And today I felt like I could see through the layers a little bit. So I'm a little disappointed in that, but it's still gonna be perfectly good to eat. But right now I'm gonna whip some cream and this one is gonna be ready to go. So we're just gonna put our whipped cream layer right on top of there and get it spread out. I did a cup of whipped cream. It's not going to be a super thick layer, but it'll be okay. I would maybe do a cup and a half next time. Get it on there a little bit thicker, but this will pass. I cannot wait to dig in. This is definitely going to be a crowd pleaser. I don't think, unless somebody really hates rhubarb, I don't think you can go wrong with this one. So I have a piece of the rhubarb custard. This is the custard dessert that we baked, and it is amazing. So I store it in the refrigerator because you really want this cold, and this is really, really good. So the great thing about rhubarb desserts is they have this sweet and sour, the sweet and tangy taste at the same time. So the sweetened whipped cream on top helps with that. This middle layer is not super sweet. It's pretty tart, but yeah, everything comes together and everything goes together so deliciously. I don't think you'll be disappointed with this one. This is really good. It turned out great. I hadn't made it in a while, and I think it turned out really, really good. So here we have our rhubarb layered pudding from the freezer. So this, a little bit more than the dessert I made the time before. Like this is my second time making it this year. And there's a little bit of liquid as this was thawing. And I don't think it was doing that so much the first time I made it. So I really don't know what the difference was. I mean, I made everything pretty much the same. So there's a little bit of that liquid from just being in the freezer and thawing, but you don't really have to freeze it. If I hadn't have made the other one, I would have obviously left it out of the freezer, but we don't need more than one dessert at a time, right? But the taste is great. It is not completely covered, like I said. I did kind of a sloppy job of putting this thing together because I was in a hurry, but the taste is excellent. It is very refreshing. It's almost a little bit lighter than the other one because it doesn't have that cream and the egg yolk. Obviously it has a cream layer, but it doesn't have that egg yolk. So it's a little bit lighter. It's really good. It does have egg yolk though. It has egg yolk in the vanilla pudding, but for some reason it still feels like a little bit more of a lighter dessert compared to that custard bar that we made. So, but they're both delicious. They both probably will not disappoint. And I hope you try these amazing rhubarb recipes. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a video, and we will talk to you soon.